How have you been, Jason?
No, I've been good, man. It's obviously been a different dynamic trying to deal with the constraints of COVID-19. It's been rather restrictive here in the lockdown in Barbados. But slowly but surely our country has been reopening. And I think we're now to phase 3, which commences tomorrow actually. And
right.
There's just one more phase in terms of full reopening in Barbados. But yeah, it's been very, very difficult initially, to say the least. And I think over the last couple of weeks, we've found creative ways to occupy your time, keep your sanity. And it has had its challenges, but for me, it's had its blessings as well too, because I've had time to sit back, reflect, spend some time with friends and family who I didn't get the option to spend some time with previously. But all in all, it has been pretty difficult, but I try to look at the positive stuff in it, and there have been some positives in this whole pandemic.
I do trust you to look at the brighter side of things more often than not, Jason, because even before you became this international cricket star, you were a star already with your cameo in Fire in Babylon, and I believe Mighty Gabby had a part to play in that. How did that happen?
Yeah, as you said, the Mighty Gabby, who's a famous calypsonian here in Barbados, him and my dad are actually friends, and he brought the opportunity to my dad, and we went from there. And I think I can't remember the year it was done, but it was quite a while ago. And we went to shoot the scene at the beach, Silver Sands Beach in Barbados, and I thought initially it was going to be part of an advertisement, and it ended up getting put into a film. And funny enough, it was the film of Fire in Babylon. So I mean, seeing myself in it, it's kind of funny, man. And yeah, it's a pleasing feeling for me to be amongst some of the greats in a very, very minute way, but a way nevertheless. And yeah, it's been great to see how greatly, how massively the film has grown and the publicity is gained.
Absolutely. I mean, but how bad was the ribbing from some of your mates after you went shirtless on the Fire in Babylon video?
Yeah, it was taken in kind of variable contexts. A lot of friends, had a good laugh over it. I myself had a good laugh over it because it was I couldn't even remember the year it was done and how old I was at that time. But yeah, it was a bittersweet feeling knowing that, again, a part of history, part of a special film that basically depicts West Indies cricket. And then a bit in the sense where, some of my teammates, friends, close persons had a good kick over it, and gave me some stick about it.
Right. I've also read this interesting anecdote about your family. You've obviously been really tight with your dad. And after you picked up your maiden fifer for Barbados at the regional level, you went straight to your father, and your manager, Desmond Hines, fined you for not celebrating with the team.
Yeah, that's right, man. It was my first class 5-wicket haul against Jamaica, and it was funny enough, that season I had started quite slowly. Typical spectators and fans, pundits would have been calling, for me to be left out, and it was kind of a pressure situation where I needed some wickets, and to just basically show why I should have been in the team. I really produced a good spell that day against Jamaica, and I got 5 wickets in the innings. And my father's always been that person to be with me throughout my entire career. As a youngster growing up, he watched nearly every one of my cricket games at school. Playing for Barbados, he traveled, to watch me play. So he's been my biggest fan in my corner. I just felt it was fitting to go around to him and give him that moment, or share that moment with him. For me, it was a special moment, and I attribute a lot of it to him.
Also, because of your height and the fact that you've been really tight with the big bird, Joel Garner. There have been inevitable comparisons right at the start of your career. Could you describe the kind of role that Mr. Garner has played in your career, in your growing up years especially?
Well, funny enough, I trying to remember my first experience with the Joe Ghana, but it must have been through some cricketing meet and greet or a cricket game. But I was managed by Joe Garner when I played for West Indies as well, and you know,
Right.
him and I have grown a really good relationship over the years. You know, we honestly call him Grandpa. You know,
Okay.
because he's just that father figure. You know, he's a tough guy sometimes, but his
Right.
principles are solid. You know, he's tough when he needs to be tough, but he's got a big heart. He's got a very, very big heart. You know, a lot of people hear Joe Garner or know of Joe Garner as being a very tough guy to deal with, tough on the field. You know, he comes across as that serious guy. But, you know, funny enough, I find him to have one of the biggest hearts. You know, and he's one of those people who would go his way to help people and to ensure that, you know, once you're serious about what you're doing, he would give you that support and give you his advice as much as he possibly can. To me, if there's one person who I would say former cricketer who I know for sure cares is Joe Garner, definitely, because I've had that personal interaction with him, and it just has been he's just been one of those people who has shown me that he's care, you know, and that's just sometimes all that you really need from a current player's perspective, you know, that backing or support from past players just to show us that you care, and you know, you really get that from Mr. Garner.
Yeah, and one of the more fascinating aspects of your career, Jason, is your captaincy, your leadership. Of course, you have been anointed as a leader of sorts right from the age group levels. You have led West Indies at different age group categories, of course. But do you still recall the moment that you had with Mr. Clive Lloyd when he sounded you out about the captaincy, when you were all of just 23, and in a few weeks' time you would go on to become the youngest West Indies Test captain in history?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun enough you mentioned Clive Lloyd's name, you know, and along with Joe Garner, he's probably the next closest person, or probably closer to me than Joe Garner. You know, we get along really well. I've always had that respect for him, and I remember my first interaction with him being at the launch of the High Performance Centre in the West Indies, and he happened to be there, and I asked Mr. Roddy Eswick, who was a coach of ours at that time, to introduce me to him. You know, because I've always obviously heard about Clive Lloyd, and you know, he's a great of the game. So I wanted to have a chat with him. So Mr. Eswick initiated the conversation for me, and that's my first interaction with Clive Lloyd. And I think since then he's followed my progress and he's been fond of me. And through his foresight, you know, I became captain, and you know, ever since then, it's not a case where he just left me alone and left me, you know, without any guidance. You know, he's always been in contact. You know, whenever I go up to England, you know, we make sure we meet up. You know, whether we go and have dinner or, you know, it is always constant contact with Clive Lloyd and myself. And to me, I adore him. You know, I see him as another father figure in my life. And, you know, I've got a lot to be thankful for when it comes to our relationship and the things he's really helped me with in the past and also the present as well too. So, yeah, a lot of respect for Mr. Clive.
What was the first sign that you had that captaincy at the international level was a completely different ball game?
I think initially when I took the captaincy, it was more around. I felt I was only really thinking about the on-field contribution, you know, just dealing with tactics, dealing with personnel on the field. But to become aware of so many off-the-field circumstances was eye-opening for me, and for me that has been probably the most challenging facet of being captain of the West Indies team. You know, not so much the on-field cricketing stuff, but just more the off-field administrative kind of stuff or political kind of things. So that has been the greatest challenge so far, and I mean, till now I've still been finding creative ways to try to deal with certain circumstances and situations, but it's always going to be an ongoing battle, I believe.
Also, for someone who took over captaincy at a really young age, how difficult was it to get the seniors to rally around someone like you?
Look, I think the only way it would have been possible is to gain their respect through my performances. You know, it's just a case where I think the best way to earn that respect is to show people what you can do. You know, and I think over a period of time, I would have been able to show the guys, well, look, not only do I ask of the players to give their best or to perform well, but I've got to show them what that is. And I try my best always to lead from the front. And to me, that's one of the best leadership styles that any leader could adopt. But it was just one of those times where, yes, I needed to think of myself more as a player sometimes and not as a captain, and just try to make sure that my performances stand out. I felt that if my performances stood out, then I would have that support. I would be able to slowly but surely gain that support and trust to the senior players.
Was there a particular moment that told you that you had finally arrived as a captain and the guys around were starting to respect you more as a fellow bloke, as also a leader?
Not really, I don't think it's easy to pick out at one particular point, but I felt around my test debut, because I started as one-day captain, and then when I started test cricket, I started well, and I think around that time is when players really understood me as a leader, and we were able to then form relationships and working relationships as to how best we could take West Indies cricket forward. So yeah, I would say basically around that time where I became test captain is then where I was quote unquote seen as that leader that people were expecting.
Also, for someone like you who believes in leading by example, aside from that part of the problem, there is of course the issue of captaincy smarts and tactically being a lot sharper than you probably were at one point. So where did you pick up those captaincy smarts from? Who were your go-to guys that you looked up for inspiration?
Look, to me is something that you could never ever get enough information on. You get information through conversation with former leaders, former players. You look at the current scope of international cricket, you see the top teams and how they operate and what they do, and then you just try to correlate your team to theirs and trying to find patterns and ways to get to that level, because that's ultimately where you wanna be. You need to be throwing the team at the top. So I would say it's a combination of a few things, just conversation and knowledge from former players, through experience. I think experiences have definitely helped me in terms of leadership, trial and error. And with all these things combined has helped me or grown me into a better leader.
You also had a stint with the Chennai Super Kings where you had the opportunity to play under arguably one of the finest tacticians in the modern game, MS Dhoni. Did you have an opportunity to pick his brains as far as leadership was concerned, or did you watch him from afar and pick up a few things?
I think it's a bit of both. MS and I would have had a few conversations. I mean, nothing too majorly in depth, but just general conversations. But I think I really sat back and understood how he went about things. And I think the biggest strength that MS has is the respect he's gained from other players. I mean, when you look at the Indian team, you look at the Chennai Super Kings, every single member of that team respects him, and that's a case where that guys would push through brick walls for him. When he has that respect and that trust from his teammates, and everybody's just pulling for him. I think that's one of the major attributes of a strong leader. You gotta got that trust and that relationship with your players to know that when you step and cross that line, that war field, that battlefield, that every single member of your allegiance is behind you. And I think that's something that really stands out with MS. He has the backing of his players, the support of his support staff, and everybody is just 100% behind him, and it makes his job so much easier.
Right. Who are the other contemporary captains that you've been in awe of, or captains that you've tried to, pick up a few pointers from?
It's hard to say, to be honest. I watch so many different sports, and I see leadership from different angles. From
LeBron James, for instance.
Yeah, you see people like LeBron James who is arguably one of the greatest athletes to play professional sport. His leadership style, you know, you get the opportunity now to see the Last Dance documentary with
Correct.
Michael Jordan, and you see
Absolutely.
how he was as a leader. You see documentaries around other outstanding athletes, and the one common thing that all of them have is that drive. You know, all of them have that drive for success. All of them have that drive for winning championships. All of them have that drive and that energy, and like just focus on being the best at what they're doing. And you know, there are different ways people go about doing it. You know, some people are a lot more aggressive than some, but the common denominator with all of them is that nothing will get in the way of them achieving greatness, you know, achieving success, winning championships. And I think that's definitely the mindset and attitude that any leader should really have. But I can't really sit back and say that I look at particular leaders in terms of cricket. I just try to broaden my knowledge as a leader generally, because everything relates. I mean, all leadership styles, all leadership positions, could correlate. So I don't necessarily have to look at cricket leaders per se and just pigeonhole myself into that category. You know, I can really look around, even look at corporate businesses. There are many different styles of leadership, and you know, just piecing it all together to basically formulate a style which is unique to you. Because I don't think I could just say I want to be like MJ. You know, MJ was MJ. There's only one MJ. So for me, Jason Hole, I've got to create my own style, and it could be married around other leadership styles and just combining it into my style. But I think I have to have that identity.
What are your own unique methods as captain? Are you the kind of bloke that's big on one-on-one conversations with your players? And how do you work on the off-field relationship aspect of captaincy with players?
Look, initially when I started, I don't feel I had the best ways, but you know, over a period of time, as I said, trial and error, you know, you've been faced with different scenarios which have opened up your eyes as to how to really deal with it. But I try to have it. I try to have as much dialogue and communication as I possibly can, whether it be in a team forum, whether it be in a one-on-one forum, or just a small groups. It's just a matter of having that transparency. I think once you have that transparency with your teammates and you gain the trust. You know, you get understanding. And recently now, I think I've gotten to that point where, particularly in the test team, the guys really respect me. So for me, now just trying now to get the guys pushing in that direction. If you've seen the results for us over the last 3 years, you know, we've won a lot more test matches. We've won a few more series. So it's just a case that right now for us to keep pushing in that direction, you know. I mean, we're not perfect. We're still far from being world number one, but I think the current crop of players that we have now, we've got the capability to go up there, go up the ladder, work our way realistically up the ladder, and keep vying for a place of being the number one side in the world.
The other interesting aspect about you as a cricketer also is that you are not probably one of the fast bowlers of yesteryear where you are an out-and-out tearaway. Instead, you use a lot of different cricketing smarts. You use the angles rather well. You use the crease and the swing. At what point did you discover that out-and-out pace wasn't necessarily your strength, but rather this crafty, niggardly bowling that's been come to associate with you?
Look, I've never been a tearaway fast bowler. Never ever in my career have I been a tearaway fast bowler. So I mean, I have always had to find other ways of getting the job done. And for me, that was just developing skill. And to me, a lot of these more successful fast bowlers of the game, you know, weren't tearaway. You know, some of them were sharp, some of them had good pace, but it's never been a case where majority of tearaway fast bowlers have been the most successful players in any era. So for me, I mean, especially playing against some pretty good opposition on some pretty placid wickets, you know, you need to develop skill. And that's just all I've ever really worked on, you know, my personal skills and making sure that I have a game that could withstand any conditions and any player in any conditions. So I just try to really focus in on building pressure. Accuracy for me is a massive thing in any form of cricket. And I think the great Glenn McGrath would always say if he bowls 21 dot balls, you know, he's guaranteed a wicket. And it's just simple as that, you know. Once you build pressure, you know, things will happen. And he's a guy that you could really model my bowling action or my bowling style, you know, off. Somebody like Curly Amos, who was very, very, very stingy, you know, he gave nothing away. You know, and these guys really strive on accuracy and building pressure. And that's probably arguably they're regardless, probably two of the greats of the game.
Right, and also as far as your batting is concerned, you do one of the hardest jobs in the business, batting with the tail and mopping up some runs in the lower order. How challenging has that been, and what have you specifically worked on to get better at what you do?
Look, I think most of the times where you're faced with those scenarios, the context of the game is already painted for you. There's not much to think about. It's more so you just focusing on the actual delivery after delivery. You know, I think a lot of times people get consumed by the situation and the scenario, but when you're in those situations, when you're quote unquote under pressure, it's clear you need to find a partnership. You need to rally yourself out of it. You need to mix aggression with defense and just build a partnership generally. So I think it's pretty clear. I mean, I don't go in the nets and per se put myself into those scenarios. I just go in the nets to particularly work on a few things. Maybe my footwork. I'm a big advocate of getting into good positions. So when I go into the net or I leave a net, I want to know that I'm leaving the net in a good frame of mind, saying to myself, well, look, I've gotten into really good positions. I'm striking the ball where you want to strike the ball. And there are ways to gauge that. You know, you could go to play a cover drive and it hits the inner portion of the bat, and then you could ask yourself why it happened. Maybe you went at it a little too early. You know, there are different things to critique the actual technique at that particular stage. But generally, I think it's all mainly to do a lot with the mind. So it's a strong mental game. And I think once I've got that mindset, where I'm building my brain for war, you know, building myself a challenge, then no matter what challenge I'm faced with, I'll be able to cope with it. But I think simple things when I go into the net, I just really simplify it and look to get myself into good positions. And I know once I get myself into good positions, then my head is in a good position, and the head leads the other components of the body. And then once my head is in a good position, then I have better judgment whether I want to play it or whether I want to leave it. And to me, it's easy to gauge once you understand what you're doing.
Right. There have been a couple of viewer questions coming in. One from Srigandan Raja and the other from Ambrish. Both of them have a rather similar question. You have had a completely different experience in a totally different neck of the woods, which was in Chennai for the IPL. How has CSK helped you as a player and as a leader? Can you also share one thing that you took from the CSK environment to your approach as a player and as a captain?
My experience in the IPL has been, you know, wonderful, especially in Chennai. Chennai was my first franchise, and then I had the opportunity to play for Sunrisers Hyderabad and also the Kolkata Knight Riders. But my first stint was with Chennai, and it gave me an opportunity, and not so much looking at it from a playing angle, but I had the opportunity to mingle with international stars, you know, upcoming Indian stars, current Indian stars. And it was just a great environment to be in to learn. And I was young, I was 21 years old when I played for Chennai, and to learn in that environment for me was beautiful, because you had so many resources in the dressing room to pull on. You know, you had MS Dhoni, you had Dwayne Bravo, you had Suresh Raina, you had Ravindra Jadeja, then you had Mike Hussey, you know, MS Dhoni, just a few people to call on. And being put in that environment, it's hard not to learn. You know, it's hard not to learn. Even it's hard not to learn from the negative things that you may have seen or picked up, because I mean we're all never perfect. There's no perfect system. There's no perfect person. So there are flaws and you learn from them. But there's so many different positive things in that environment to pick up. You know, some of just the work ethic. And I always go back to Mike Hussey and that. I mean, there were a lot of times where Hussey ran the fielding sessions for us, you know, and we had a fielding coach in Steve Rickson, who was excellent.
Right.
And Hussey was basically the crash dummy, for lack of a better phrase. And he's the guy who really, really pushed us in our practice. And one of the things we would always do is try to make sure the intensity is up in the practice, because once that intensity is there, then it's easy to transcend into a game. And Huss gave some very good pointers as to how he anticipates, particularly. At that stage, he was basically at the back end of his career. He was getting older. He wasn't as quick as he used to be. So one of his greatest assets as a good fielder was anticipation. He just basically pinpointed subtle things such as a batsman's bat lift, if a batsman is shaping to play a ball in one particular side. So he knows whether he's anticipating to go left or anticipating to go right, forward or back. It doesn't matter, just based on how he's seeing the batsman set up. And little things like that are just, you know, just great. And it was really good to see Steve Rickson let Mike basically run it, because sometimes we get caught up from a player's perspective that, you know, coaches only keep saying things and keep highlighting things, but they're never actually, some of them are never actually capable of actually demonstrating it. But then for a player to put his hand up and not only put his hand up in practice to run us through it, but you can see in the games he basically practiced what he preaches. You know, he goes into the game and does the same exact thing. It's a lot more comforting for you as a player to take in, because this guy has basically shown us that he can do it. You know, and not only telling us here in practice or in practice that he can do it in practice, but he transcends that into the game and he delivers.
Also, you seem to have forged some wonderful friendships off the field as well during your Chennai Super Kings stint. A couple of guys who just cannot stop raving about you are Vijay Shankar and Baba Prajit. Those two guys have the nicest things to say about you. They also do fondly recollect your visits to their homes. So could you talk us through some of the friendships that you have forged during the IPL, and how do you manage to nurture them these days?
Look, every team that I've been into, I have found myself getting closer to some Indian players. You know, when I went to Chennai, Baba Prajit was there, didn't play a game. Vijay Shankar was there, didn't play. I don't think Vijay played.
Yeah, he didn't. Except for one game.
I know. I probably played one game, but they didn't play much. And that was my first time going to India as well. So I wanted to experience the Indian culture, see what the country is all about. And these guys were very welcoming. You know, Vijay took me to his home with Baba Prajit as well. Baba brought his twin brother into the as well too. And you know, we all got along really, really well. I remember the last tour I had to India last year. We went to Chennai, and that was actually the first time I've been back to Chennai since that year. I think it was 2013. And I caught up with Indrajit, who was injured at that time and now coming back from injury. He had surgery, and we went for dinner. You know, so it's just these relationships you build over the years, and you just see the genuine kind-heartedness of these players. And you know, these are guys that I would always remember, and these are guys that I will always be really, really good with because of our experiences together. You know, we look for one another's interests. You know, I always pay close attention to the first-class cricket in India just to see what these guys are doing. You know, how well they're doing, or if they're not getting any runs. You know, when they do well, you know, I send them messages, you know, and say, "Well done, well played." And for me, that's just friendship. You know, that's just friendship that you've built over the years, and people who you could see the genuineness within them. For me, I like genuine people, and I've been blessed with that personality to tell the difference between someone who's genuine, probably someone who's not. So yeah, I mean, those are two that I got close to at Chennai. When I went to Sunrisers, you know, I spent a fair bit of time with KL Rahul, and KL Rahul was now basically dubbed as the upcoming star. But, you know, you just need that opportunity. So we spent some time together at Sunrisers. And then in KKR, I spent a little bit of time with Kuldeep Yadav as well. Kuldeep was he wasn't in the Indian team as yet, but you know, everybody knew that he was the wicket taker. So Kuldeep was another guy who we spend a little bit of time around in KKR as well, just to name a few. But there are many guys. I remember Venugopal Rao. You know, we were
Yeah.
very close at the races as well, you know, and I met up with him the last time I went down to India. And he's
Right.
now, I think he's into cricket administration as well too. So it's really
Yes.
good to see those guys progressing.
Commentary as well these days.
Commentary as well, yeah. So it's good to see
Yeah.
those guys doing that. Irfan Pathan, I remember I met up with him in Mumbai. You know, he's saying he's into a bit of commentary as well too, a little bit of coaching. So he's now
Yeah.
basically stopped playing as well too. So, you know, you build these relationships with players over the years, and it's still good to see that. You know, you get that respect and that love from them, because whenever you see them, you know, you greet them, and they're always willing to go for dinner. You know, always willing to maybe have a drink, sit down, chat, and catch up, because you've built that relationship up with them over the years.
Just to roll back the years a little bit, in January 2019, I mean, just rolling it back by a year, in fact, you became the first West Indies all-rounder since Sir Garfield Sobers to be ranked the number one Test all-rounder. Is that the achievement that you cherish the most in all of your cricketing career?
Honestly, I mean, being quote-unquote dubbed as the best all-rounder in world cricket, for me, means nothing.
Right.
I mean, and you can use a small example. I've seen so many, during this lockdown and COVID-19, I've seen so many things published by Cricket Info, ICC, around probable current best teams or best 11s, and you know, a lot of the time you don't see people who are actually in the are ranked highly in the ICC ranking. So it then makes me wonder if being the number one ranked all-rounder, being the number one ranked fast bowler, being the number one ranked test batsman means anything.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, for me, it's a difference if I'm the number one team in the world, then I feel as though I can maybe justify that. But I mean, again, number one team ranked based on what? Is it just the ICC's ranking system? Is it through votes? I don't know, but I guess for me personally, I would just love to see West Indies cricket back at the top, and us winning a lot more Test matches, winning a lot more Test series, winning a World Cup, a one-day World Cup. We've won T20 World Cups before, but just to see the overall success of West Indies cricket, that's all I would see. I don't get caught up with these rankings and like player rankings per se, because I don't feel they hold much weight, to be honest.
Right. But this particular honor was bestowed upon you just after the double century that you scored at the Kensington Oval. What are your memories of that particular knock? Because coming as it did on your home ground, do you still hark back to that knock from time to time?
Not really, to be honest. I've had a chance to see it again during this lockdown, as there was a recap of it, but look, I don't really go back to it that often.
Right.
It was one of the best days of my life, in all honesty. It was my first century at home.
Right.
And I've always envisioned myself running a century in front of my home crowd. And I had a few half centuries before that. And I was just wondering when I scored that first time, because I knew I'd get one, but I just wondered when it would be. And to score it in front of your home country, on a big stage against England, who is arguably our biggest Test series, and then to transfer 100 into a double 100, I don't think there are words for me that I could explain it. And it was just one of the best days of my life, and a day that I would always cherish, and a Test match that I would definitely always remember. Right,
and another red letter day for West Indies cricket was in England in 2017, when Shai Hope and Craig Brathwaite helped West Indies chase down 300 in a memorable victory. And at the post-match presentation, you said something interesting, that you sent out a text to all the boys on the last morning, asking them to believe in themselves. Was that a Winston Churchill-like a text address that was sent? What were the contents exactly?
I can't remember the text. I do remember standing out in text, but you know, sometimes you just need to reassure people of how good they are, and why they're here, and that they belong here. You know, and it was just one of those those games where I felt we really fought hard. You know, even in the
Yeah.
first test match, we were outplayed. I felt we really fought hard. We really gave a big effort, and we were always in that second test match. You know, but you know, Stokes got 100 in the first or second, I can't remember, but he got 100 where we put him down, and
Right.
it could have hurt us. You know, he played well, but it could have that could have really hurt us a little bit more. But our bowlers really fought. Batters played outstandingly well in that game, and it was a collective effort, man. I just think on our morning,
Yeah.
we knew what was at stake, and it was only one thing to do. You know, we had one goal, and that was just to chase him down. We didn't feel as though a draw was possible. It would have been a result. So for me, I was just telling you guys, look, let me just look to believe it, man. Speak into being, you know, and try to live it, visualize it, and let's go out there and do it.
And also, as far as the CPL is concerned, you won the CPL with the Barbados Tridents. You bet the favorites, of course, the TKR side. And there is, of course, a lot of chatter from the CPL administrators about the Caribbean Premier League happening this season. What are your thoughts about the tournament taking place realistically?
Look, again, I go back to the comment I made around the England series. I think it's all the same. You know, for cricket to play again, under the constraints of COVID-19, we just got to be very, very mindful of safety. You know, I think safety must come first, and we must ensure that our players aren't exposed to this, and we've got to do everything in the power to make sure that whatever environment is created, that is safe. So if we can have a safe environment, I don't see why CPL wouldn't play. You know, we're all very hopeful that it goes on because it's a wonderful tournament. But we do understand where the world is at present. You know, we've got to cope with this deadly virus, and just to ensure that we cut the widespread of it. You know, it's done a hell of a lot of damage so far, but I think it's incumbent as us as people to make sure it doesn't spread anymore and that we could get it under control.
There's a lot of mixed reactions about the possibility of playing in front of empty stands in empty stadiums. We did get a glimpse of what that could possibly mean in the post-COVID era with the Bundesliga game last night. But what are your thoughts on it, Jason? Would you be open to, you know, playing in front of empty stadiums? Should that be the only possible way to get cricket restarted?
Look, if you sit back and wait for this thing to boil over completely, you know, it could be years before we get back to that point. I think if that's what it comes to, we're just going to have to deal with it. Ideally, it's not what we would all like. Yeah, I'm sure us as we as players would love fans in the crowds because it gives us that added impetus, you know, it gives us that added drive. And fans adore who adore cricket would just get an option to come and see their stars live. But I just think of it as a normal job, you know. Everybody else in the workforce has got to go back out, you know, go back out to work. Try obviously adjusting their way of normalcy and just becoming familiar with this new norm. And it's just like us as cricketers, you know, if this is going to be part and parcel of it, then we've just got to accept it. We've got to get on with it, you know, because there's no timeline in terms of when this virus will go away, if it would ever go away, you know. So it's just so much uncertainty at this present time. But I think the relevant cricket bodies have been doing a fantastic job in just even open up discussions around how best to resume cricket. And I'm sure that we would all come to a common ground as to how cricket could be played, and we get back to at least seeing some cricket on TV, you know, and then hopefully and not too far in the future that we could see cricket live.
For a number of years now, one of the worries about the decline in West Indies cricket, so to say, has been about the talent drain, about people in the Caribbean, youngsters in the Caribbean opting for basketball and athletics over cricket. How would Jason Holder go about arresting that kind of a problem?
Look, I've heard this on numerous occasions, but I don't see it. You know, cricket is still arguably one of the biggest sports, if not the biggest sport in the Caribbean. and there's still a lot of people who have a keen interest in playing cricket. I just think now with technology and other sports being gifted the opportunity here in the Caribbean, then people are actually open to more opportunities. But it's not to say that I think cricket is dying or people have lost interest in cricket. I feel the total opposite about that. But
Right.
they do have more options. You know, there's lots of other sports now which are played at school level, which governments and regions have invested in. You know, so people have more opportunities to open up their sites to other sports. But I still think cricket is probably the number one sport in Caribbean.
Right. Also, I mean, Phil Simmons is someone that you won the CPL title under, and he's now come back as the West Indies coach, and you guys did well in India. How would you rate Phil as a man manager and a coach?
I think Phil is an excellent man manager. He's just got that demeanor to possess respect, you know, and he gives it. You know, anybody who gives respect wouldn't find it hard to get respect back. You know, I think he's had lots of success through his management skills and just implementing good structures in the team environment. Phil is obviously one of the easiest people I've found to work with, and we have a really good relationship. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Phil Simmons, and I think he's done a hell of a job so far in his coaching tenure as West Indies coach. But you've seen his results wherever he goes. You know, he wins titles, and you know he's got the backing of a lot of the players as well.
Being one of the boys, after being a captain for a really long time, how does that weigh in for you? Because you're used to a certain kind of lifestyle as the team's leader, but to now come back and be a part of the rank and file, how does that sit with you?
Yeah, it's been a difficult transition. One, I'm still trying to find ways to cope with, and you know, no doubt I would find a way to deal with it, man. It's nothing beyond me. I have just played cricket as a player before, and yeah, just for me, I just think it's important that I give as much support to the current leader as possible, and you know, we just all on the same page moving forward, moving West Indies cricket forward. But yeah, it has been an interesting transition to say the least.
Right. Just a few quick, quirky questions of sorts before we let you go. So you always have this image of being the soft-spoken, ultra nice cricketer on the park. But has there ever been a moment on the field where you completely lost it and had a real go at someone?
On the field, no. Dressing room, maybe. You know, I may have had a few run-ins with people. I mean, I've had tons of differences with players, man. I just think that it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right not to have run-ins with people. I think once two people care about something or have an opinion on something, then you have difference in opinion at some stage. And that's just part of professional sport, and that's just part of life. So yeah, I've had tons of run-ins with players on and off the field. Well, not really on. I would say more so off the field. But yeah, it's never stopped us from going about our business, man. To be honest, our common goal is to win cricket games, and that's what we strive to do.
What's the cleverest piece of sledge that you've dished out?
Sledge.
Yeah.
It's not something I would want to mention here on this.
So not so clever after all.
No, it was clever for me because I got my message across.
Okay.
I wasn't really concerned about how to bring it across. It was just getting the message across. But no, man, I am not one of those people who go on a cricket field to keep my mouth shut. But I'm not one of those people who go on a cricket field to attack people verbally. But I do believe there's a place in cricket for it. You've got to play cricket hard, man. You've got to play cricket tough. I believe you should be able to be at a battle, be at war on the cricket field. When you come off the field, you can have a beer, you can have a drink, you can have a chat, and that's when the social begins. But on the cricket field, it should be played tough, man. I am a big advocate for sledging. Yeah. I believe it has a place in the game. Obviously, you don't take it overboard, but in the heat of the battle, you never know. These things can happen. But the most important thing is when you leave the cricket field, you shake hands, you have a relationship, And to me, some of the
Yeah.
best relationships are built through sledging. You know,
Wow. Okay.
there are times where in the heat of the battle you say and do things that you just necessarily don't mean, but through emotion and then being in the heat of the battle, it just gets the better of you at that particular time. But then you come off the field, sit back and say, "Oh shoot, I really probably shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that." And then you probably go and you open up discussion. And then you get to really understand the individual for who they are. And that's
Right.
to me how a lot of relationships are built. I built a lot of relationships like that, particularly here in Barbados, and there's always a lot of sledging in cricket here in the Caribbean. But I am
Right.
not one to back down from it. I think that's just the way it's supposed to be. I just
Right.
won't sit back and allow you to verbally abuse me.
Yeah.
I would definitely go back at you, and I would see the true person in who I'm talking to or dealing with, I guess, after the cricket game, where I would go and try to open up a discussion with you.
Right. And what's your favorite ground in the world? That's a question that Rakesh has been asking.
Favorite ground in the world? I've got a soft spot for Perth, which is the old Wacker ground. And that's because I made my international debut there.
Right.
But it's hard to say. I've done well at Kensington Oval, and that's home, so that definitely stands out. And I've also done really well at Sabina Park in Jamaica. So
Right.
I would say those are my 3 favorite grounds in the world. But there are a lot of grounds where you get to, you're just in awe by the ambience and just the whole atmosphere. And some of them would be grounds like Lords, the Oval in England, Cape Town, the Newlands in Cape Town, Melbourne. I played a Boxing Day Test match in Melbourne. That was an awesome feeling as well. And these are just a few to name. Even playing in India at the Wankhede for me is the pinnacle. I had the opportunity to be at the Wankhede for Sachin Tendulkar's last Test match. Yeah, I spoke about Lords, but I was just also saying like the Wankhede in England for me is like the pinnacle in Indian cricket. And I had the opportunity to be at Sachin Tendulkar's last Test match. I was part of the one-day team, so we flew in during the last Test match in Wankhede. And to see that atmosphere, man, I went down to the ground. It was unbelievable. And to me, it gave me goosebumps just sitting on the balcony watching it. And just one of those days in cricket that I would always remember. Sachin Tendulkar obviously being one of the greats of the game, to bow out the way he did in front of his home crowd, a packed Wankhede Stadium, was phenomenal to see. And that was honestly a moment in my life I always cherish. I wasn't part of it on the field to be playing, but I saw it live and I was able to be a part of history in a sense.
What's the one sports movie that you derive a lot of inspiration from, that you keep going back to when you're probably low?
Sports movie, there are 2 that stand out. Remember the Titans, which is an old film around. It's really around different racism and black people versus white people and football. That's one. Another one is Coach Carter, which is around black, again, a lot of race and just basically young black people trying to get out of hardship. And then another one that stands out is Invictus. Which is the film around
another brilliant movie.
Around
the great Madiba.
So those are 3 movies that I like to. Well, I've watched a few times and have gained a lot from.
The sad part, unfortunately, in modern sport, as in a lot of other walks of life, is the kind of racism that comes with the territory. How do you personally cope with that? Because cricket grounds across the world aren't particularly, shy. They don't particularly refrain from racist statements or racist attacks. So, what's your way of coping with it?
Look, as a player, you just gotta be professional. Sometimes shut it out. But some comments are such that it's hard to block out. Some of those comments sometimes will make people retaliate. I haven't been personally on the brunt of any of them, but I've seen things of people like Moeen Ali, taking a fair bit, Hashim Amla, And I've met Hashim. I've played cricket with Hashim. And he is, if you probably think I'm nice, man, he's the ultimate nice guy, man. He's the nicest person I've ever met, swear to God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to hear people get down on Hashim, you know, and say things or even bring racial comments into it, it's just sad, man. It's just sad to see the level of level of intelligence of people, and hopefully, I just hope that, you know, we could grow a bit more and not be sucked into such things, you know. I think it's just time enough that we grow as people and just try to move on and be embraced into all. That's the best way I could put it.
Beautifully summed up, Jason. Just one last question before we let you go. Who's the naughtiest character in the West Indies cricket side?
Naughtiest depends on what you're thinking of, man. But I mean, what I would say is,
let's put it this way. I mean, the guy that plays the most pranks in the dressing room.
Yeah. Craig Baffett is a big prankster. Craig
Right.
Baffett. People don't know him, but Craig Baffett is a big prankster. You got to be careful around Craig. I've had tons of opportunities. I mean, tons of occasions where I've gone into the dressing room, come back in the dressing room, my gear bag is flooded with tea snacks that we get at tea, you know, all these kind of things, all to Craig, you know. I mean, blame it on Craig. But yeah, Craig, I would say, is the biggest prankster within that testing.
Right. Thank you so much, Jason, for the time that we have taken out, and it's truly a pleasure for us to have you on our 25th episode, which is a bit of a milestone for us, but all the more special because of the fact that you're someone who's balanced not just cricket, but seem to have a wonderful perspective of things outside of cricket as well. So that's always a pleasure to be listening to. So thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you so much for having me, man, and all the best. Stay safe. To the people of India,
thank you so much.
I hope you all are well. Stay safe, and you know, let's hope that we can get back to some kind of normalcy quite soon. So enjoy, be safe, and lots of love.
Thank you so much, Jason. Lots of love from India as well. Take care and stay safe. Hope to see you on the park real soon. Thank you,
Thanks
Jason.
a lot. All right, cheers, bye.
Cheers, buddy.